Hey guys, Ash Lane here, coming at you today, talking some Super Queen BAM. It's going to be a farming guide using my new favorite farming strategy. So before the replays, let's talk some of the minimum levels and army pros and cons. So the Queen, some people like 10 plus, I like 15 plus. Minions, healers, bards, you can see the recommended levels there. Some pros are a faster training time, it only costs 23 minutes, lower army cost, especially in Elixir. And cons are obviously the army is slightly less powerful than your more traditional, giants, and I usually bring about a dozen giants and a dozen wizards with me, so certainly, like I said, less effective in terms of power, more effective in terms of time and army cost. So here is my army. I have, I switch things up a little bit every single time, but I'll show you how I cook up this army in just a second. Before that, let's go ahead and watch some replays. These last 3 attacks have been with this strategy, so let's go ahead and cover some strategy keys and talk a little bit more about why it's different and why it might be preferential to a more traditional new Super Queen. So the new Super Queen, like I said, use about a dozen giants, a dozen wizards, and you're only bringing 4 healers. That's the main difference from the more traditional Super Queen, where you would load on 6, even more, sometimes 7, 8 healers. So you can see the difference is going to be, we're going to go on a little bit of a longer walk, because the idea here on these attacks is you want your Queen, if at all possible, to take out 180 degrees of the entire 360 perimeter. That would be the perfect case scenario on these attacks here. You can see I dropped some minions on the pumps here, and that's because I'm trying to identify exactly where all the loot is. On these bases like this, sometimes it can be tricky to see if is it really a dead base or is the loot kind of divided evenly. In this case, it looks like it's pretty much divided evenly between the storages and between the pumps. So we're going to have to get everything we can get our hands on. So like I said here, the idea is to take that Queen on as long of a walk as possible. Now I'm bringing some lightning spells and earthquake to take out a mortar. The reason I'm doing that is because I know I'm not going to be playing for a little while after this attack. So I wasn't afraid to A, use some more spells than I normally would, and B, I wasn't afraid to let my Queen get low on health because I know that I don't need her up for the next raid for another hour or so. So after the Queen does her walk around about half the base, then you want to go ahead and deploy the BAM, the barbarians, the archers, and the minions in that order. And once you do that, that's going to create a nice funnel for the Queen. Hopefully some of your BAM stays alive. You can see I don't have my king available on this raid. That's because the king is helpful but not necessary in this attack. So it's definitely a good strategy to use when your king is upgrading. So that is the idea. Let's go ahead and get right into another replay so you guys can get a feel for the strategy, and then we'll go ahead and do a live raid. Hopefully it goes well. So these are the ideal bases to hit with this strategy. You can see the resources are near the perimeter, and the splash damage is near the perimeter, so that means, well, you'll see what it means towards the end of this raid. We'll be able to take out a couple splash damages with the Queen in terms of the wizard towers, and then the minions, once I get them to the center of the base, we'll be able to take down that dark elixir because there's no splash damage for airstroops in the center of the base. That's one of the obvious benefits of taking minions in your army. Now, you guys probably already know this, but there's 2 ways to save a dying Queen on these Queen walks, and it is imperative that you use these 2 tools in your toolbox there. So one way is the Queen ability, the Royal Cloak, and the other way is obviously a rage spell. Don't be afraid to save the Queen with a rage. Don't cut things too close, and always better to keep her alive throughout these raids. So be ready to use a rage spell on the healers. We'll get more into rage spell placement on the next replay, hopefully. But what I wanted to focus on this replay is that you can see the minions are just going to create a beautiful funnel for the king and the queen. I do have my king on this raid, and they're just going to be able to get right to the center of the base, right where the dark elixir is. So you'd think that it would be more difficult to funnel, or not to funnel, but to get to the center of the base and then can mount a powerful offensive attack still in the center of the base, like we're going to see here. The queen and king still alive. Queen's going to get a few extra storages there. I use her ability towards the end. But actually, it does pretty well. Keep those two numbers in mind. 180 degrees on the walk, if at all possible, and then another 90 degrees with your BAM part of it. You want to take out roughly 75% of the base with this strategy. So this is how I cook up the army. Some people ask, how do you cook the armies so that everything finishes at the same time? You don't have to wait any longer than necessary. So this is why I show this, especially on the farming comps, because it's all about time and resources spent. Now for spells, I would, at minimum, I would like to have one rage spell and one poison spell for the clan castle. So I usually cook up one healer in each barracks, followed by 20 barch, as you can see here. Just going ahead and put 20 barch in each barracks. Like I said, that's around a 23-minute cook time there. So if you're going to boost anything with this strategy, it would be nice to boost your queen and your spell factory. So you can get 20 gems for an hour boost on those two items if you're interested, if you're a booster. If not, you can just wait the half an hour or so between every raid, which actually amounts to a lot if you're able to raid throughout the day. So let's go ahead and do a live raid here, guys. We'll focus on especially the placement of our rage spell, because that's something that I see a lot of people kind of messing up on a little bit. So we'll make sure you guys don't make the same mistakes. So this is an interesting base, but I really don't want to hit a Town Hall 10 with my Town Hall 9, primarily because, well, this is a nice Dark Elixir raid, because I'm working on an episode for Town Hall 10s and 11s, specifically for Super Queen farming, because it's a whole different ball game when you're hitting those Inferno Towers. So I'm working on that, so I want to make this strictly Town Hall 9 today, although you can certainly use the same tactic in 10 and 11. So I'm trying to identify where the splash damage is, and where the resources are, and where I want to start my queen. So I'm going to start her, I think, in the east. I'm trying to find a good place to drop one minion to see where the resources are. This is another one of those tricky bases. You can see that it's tough to identify. Is it mostly in the, I think it's similar to the first raid we saw, that the elixir seems to be, or the resources, excuse me, seems to be mostly in the storages, but certainly maybe about 25% or so in the pumps in the mines. So anyway, you can see I'm starting here with the queen walk, and I'm probably going to have to rage the queen coming up shortly here, because she's going to have the X-bow, the cannon, and the archer tower on her, it looks like. And she won't be able to stay alive through that. So we'll go ahead and use a rage, and watch where I use it. See how it's barely on the perimeter of those healers? The idea here when you're using rage is not to rage the archer queen. It's not that important to rage the archer queen. Sure, it helps, but it's all about raging those healers. So instead of placing the rage spell directly on those healers, it's really important that you place it into the path where the healers are heading. So anyway, you can see here she's taken out close to 90% of the perimeter of the base. So we're going to be thinking about our entry point with the BAM portion. We're going to definitely wait till she gets around the corner, because she's not going to be able to make it. We're not going to have enough time for her to make it all the way around to like 9 o'clock. So we're going to start the raid at around 10 o'clock with the BAM portion. So I'm just softening up the defenses with that Earthquake spell, and before her healers start to all go down, we're going to just start the BAM portion of the raid. Again, I happen to have a Lava Hound in the clan castle. That comes in handy because he will distract that wizard tower, and here comes my BAM. The barbarians, archers, and minions have been deployed. I dropped my king maybe a little bit too early there. I want him to funnel right into the middle, so we're going to go ahead and use another rage spell. Not 100% necessary, maybe not, but the idea is to just give the troops a little extra oomph there. You can see the minions are taking down the opposing archer queen. That's going to be good, and my healers, because I started that funnel nice and early, my healers were able to stay alive, so she's in turn going to keep my queen alive, so my queen can get this dark elixir here. So everything went well in this raid. You can see, like I said, if everything goes well in this attack format, you're probably going to be taking out roughly 75% of a pretty well upgraded base. So my queen is now in the center. I haven't had to use her Royal Cloak ability yet. Just me personally, I like using the Royal Cloak as a last resort, so I use the rage spell before I use the royal cloak. Everybody has their own preferences, but that's what I like to do because I don't mind too much using the rage spell because personally I usually boost my barracks. But people who don't boost their spell factory, excuse me, you might want to consider using the royal cloak ability before you use the rage spell because rage spells are a little bit longer to come by when you're not boosting. So I guess we're going to go ahead and end things there, guys. I hope you got a new interesting take on BAM Super Queen farming. Love bringing these farming videos to you guys, especially with the Vexthal account because I am farming a lot still on Vexthal, way more so than on the Ash account. So guys, thank you so much for tuning in and watching, and hey, as always, take care.
We don't play for fame, we don't play for cash. We just play for the glory and the clash of the ash.
Oh, guys, be sure to check out my second channel, 3-Star Vault, a huge collection of 3-star raids.